Hey guys, this is Pedro back with another interview covering DreamHack Dallas 2024. For this occasion, I have here with me Uber. He's currently working the Overwatch or OWCS major in DreamHack Dallas, and I have here with him. I have him here with me today to talk about Overwatch and, of course, Valorant, his current game. On top of just that, Uber, thank you so much for taking the time. Like I said before, really appreciate you giving me this chance for an interview. First and foremost, how are you feeling? How are you taking in this situation?
Pretty good. I mean, I love being a DreamHack. I think my last one was in Jönköping last year for Brawl Stars, actually, which was fun. But I haven't done an Overwatch DreamHack since 2016. It was like a DreamHack winter, again in Jönköping. So it's great to be back. It kind of feels like Overwatch esports is re-entering the wider esports community as opposed to sort of being a bit of a walled garden with how the Overwatch League was. So that's fun. It's nice to sort of be back here with everyone, see a lot of like my colleagues from previous shows and stuff, and just kind of feel like we're connected to the wider ecosystem again.
And of course, I got to ask about just the fact that we're in OWCS and not the Overwatch League. After almost a half a decade of just being of seeing the Overwatch League and then seeing it full. How has that kind of transition been like for you to just see end of Overwatch League to now being a part of a new era within Overwatch esports with the OWCS?
I think there's it's a mixed bag, honestly. Just purely from a lifestyle point of view, I think Overwatch League was quite comfortable for me. Like I could sort of raise a family off just doing that show, which was pretty handy. I'd say we're in a good place there. I think there was a lot of downside, and we could kind of tell that the sustainability of Overwatch League wasn't there, and it was definitely in its decline. And we could see that from franchises not really being willing to invest too much more, and just the general decline of quality from some of our teams. We started to see the issues with a sort of a buy-in system, I think, and realize that maybe the projections and models that sort of spurred the conception of the league weren't exactly panning out the way they were expected to. I feel good in OWCS because it feels much more organic. It feels much more like what esports actually is. Especially we open up the competition, so anyone can qualify for events like this. Like NRG Shock just picked up, a team of mixed, a mixed team of guys that have come together and made it this far, which is kind of a story I really loved, and it's something that obviously happens all the time in the fighting game community, and even in Valorant, for example, you can qualify, through Premier into challenges and so on and so forth. There's no glass ceiling on your progress. On a personal level, I have to work a lot more. I would say that just the lifestyle and sort of the pay objectively is rougher. A lot rougher. And I think I probably have to work about 5 times as much to sort of try and make the same as I did last year. So it's rough. I'm busy, and I think a few of us casters are flirting with burnout in order to try and maintain the sort of the lifestyle that we were able to have while we were in the Overwatch League and sort of benefiting from that pretty robust sort of remuneration model that we had.
And in line with that, you started now returning to the Valorant scene in 2024. Making the waves in VCT Americas and working off of that, doing commentary, hosting the desk, all of that stuff. And in addition to what you've been saying about OWCS, do you feel like this year has been the most difficult for you so far, even though we're not even at the halfway point of 2024?
Yeah, difficult because I think just my workload is much higher because I'm doing more shows, which is great, but the prep side of things is pretty involved. Valorant especially is there's a lot of domain knowledge required, and there's a lot of history already in that game. And what I found pretty quickly is when I got involved with the VCT Americas is that I was struck by just how hard everyone works. They have a lot of pride and ownership in the show. These talent really feel like they have a stake in what we're doing. So immediately I was like, oh, I really have to work hard to earn my spot here, which I'm totally fine doing. But yeah, juggling that with 3 other games plus the family and the kids and that is a fair bit. So in terms of labor, yeah, it's been the most difficult year. But I think that it's also been quite satisfying. As long as I can get away with this, I think financially in terms of time, if I can get away with this, then it will be worth it. And honestly, getting to get involved with Valorant, a game that I really enjoy, and getting to work with a lot of people I respect and people I've worked with in the past has been really rewarding. The culture there is at the VCTNA is excellent, so I'm very glad to have the chance finally to be a part of that.
That said, given what you said about the talent in Valorant, how would you kind of compare the Valorant VCT America's cast to the OWCS cast, in its current form?
I think that the VCT NA talent, for example, are much more empowered to have an impact on how their show is. Like the tone of the show, like even what goes in the segments, like they're very involved. And there's an infrastructure that allows for that. Like we're involved in the meeting, we're physically there. We sit in with the producers, we build the show every day. And, when I'm hosting the desk, we're building the halftime. We're building the pre-map for the next game. Like we're always putting something together and our input is like heavily sought. I don't think the model of how OWCS works allows for that so much because, I'll be frank, generally the OWCS feels like the minimum viable product for Overwatch esports right now. Like it's very streamlined and lean. I would say the only thing you could maybe take away from it without it and have it not just collapse entirely is the interviews. It's like it's an online broadcast where the casters are the desk. It feels like Valorant Challengers, which is obviously a lower budget product than VCT-NA is, right? That's where I feel like OWCS is now. It's easy to forget that when we get to a LAN and we really get to like do a bit more of the fun stuff when we're here in person, but that is literally an online broadcast for the most part. So the talent have less ability to impact the show, I think, and I don't think that, how do I put this? I wouldn't necessarily suggest that the rate offers represented a huge amount of respect in what talent can bring to a show for the OWCS. I would say, I'd compare it to VCT and A. I've definitely felt that they've been far more competitive and what they've sort of offered to talent in terms of remuneration and also the ability to have them shape the show. It's day and night. And I love the OWCS, don't get me wrong, but I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the vast difference in quality and my experience between the two products.
How would you kind of compare yourself, from the early days of Valorant, or more so just you getting into Valorant back in 2021? I might be wrong in there. You can correct me on that. And compared to nowadays, given what you've said about your presence in VCT Americas and your perception of how the other talent within VCT Americas compose themselves and just work within that aspect.
That's a great question. I think back when I was sort of, looking into being involved in Valorant, and I was prevented from doing so because of an exclusivity clause in my Blizzard contract, as it turned out. We found out the hard way. The talent were much younger. I think like the most senior talent at the time was sort of like Brennan Sideshow, who were obviously junior to me in the Overwatch League. So I definitely saw it was rough around the edges. It was exploratory, but there was a lot of passion there. And I think that same passion is still represented, but now it's backed up with like years of experience from a lot of the people on that show. Let's just like Mimi and Doug, for example, like they've now been on that show for quite some time and have really come into their own as broadcasters and they're show people, right? They've developed an affinity for like the flair of what a show asks of you. So getting to rejoin them now, when like I would maybe have them on Valoranting or like would sort of see their earlier casts, I've been really impressed in how far they've come. And I would also credit that to, Albert Iskander over at VCT-NA. He's like the executive producer of the show for creating a culture, I think, within which they can grow. And Brent and Josh, from what I can tell, have taken everything they learned from, Golden Boy and Puckett and a lot of the senior casters of Overwatch, and they've refined that and they've brought it over to VCT-NA. So when I walked back into the room, I was like, oh, these guys are legit. These guys are the real deal. They're very, very good at what they do. They're very talented and they're extremely good at creating a show that people can engage with. So I was instantly, like the first meeting, we had like a production meeting, I was like, oh, yeah, this is sick. This is exactly where I want to be because it's very motivating to be surrounded by people that are very talented, but also very driven to make a great show. I think like VCT-NA is like the product to be on right now if you want to be working with the best talent team. I love the guys I work OWCS with, but I think the culture that's been created over at VCT-NA enables the talent far more to take ownership and to explore like the depths of their creativity and their talent.
It sort of feels like by the time you return to the VCT Americas cast, return more so just reconnecting with a good portion of them. Yeah. It sort of developed its own new identity, vastly different compared to the kind of identities they built, when they were in the Overwatch League, right?
Oh, you mean like Brennan and Josh specifically? Right. Yeah, absolutely. I actually think that they were getting very close to getting there before they left like the Overwatch League. I generally think that I really liked having them in Overwatch because they put a lot of pressure on me and Matt to stay at the top of our game. So I enjoyed that. I think Josh is probably the best storyteller in esports, by none. He's incredibly good at telling a story. He's very, very good at delivering analysis. It's very like personable and accessible to people of all sort of levels of the game. Like I've had the privilege of casting with him a couple of times, and I have a lot of respect for what he does. And Brent as well has hugely come into his own. I've just watched him mature as a person and as a commentator greatly. And, it was kind of wild circling back around to seeing this guy who's now like, getting mid to late 20s, is starting to be a leader for the next generation of casters. And I said to him, like, I don't mind admitting this publicly, I said, you have come a long way. I'm really impressed with what you've been able to do. And I'm very pleased I get to now, rub shoulders and maybe even compete a little bit with him again. It's been fun to sort of see his development, and he still inspires me to improve. It's same with Josh, so I'm glad to work alongside him again.
Unfortunately, I got a low battery sign hitting on my camera, so I'm going to have to wrap it up very quickly, lest I encounter a massive technical problem. Sure. So one more question I want to ask you, more so now. If there's one thing that you feel you kind of adjusted the most for you as an individual, given the things that you've said from your time in Overwatch League and now OWCS, and now standing before me, having finished first day of Dallas Major in OWCS, to now as you are a part of VCT, what would that one thing be?
Sure. I think I've been kind of just doing Overwatch for quite a while, so I really had to become a bit more flexible when I came over to VCT, and also more organic. I've really tuned into how to bring the best out of people, or I've tried to at least. I've really loved working the desk in that regard, and also starting to work with Wyatt, who's someone I never cast with before. And instantly, our first game, I was like, wow, this guy's really good. There's a lot of potential here. So I think that, working with sort of new casters, new people has allowed me to explore more of my potential as well, and my flexibility. It's been a real privilege.
For sure, and likewise, it's been a privilege for you to stand here and just talk to me and have a quick interview regarding all the topics that we've been discussing. Uber, thank you so much for taking the time one more time, and best of luck for you in the next one.
Thank you, my pleasure.